So we're live. Hello,
Oh,
hi everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this amazing session. It's the African XR session at the Global XR Conference 2022. My name is Arame Ibrahim. I'm super excited to be doing this for the second time in the year running. And I'm joined by some amazing lady that I look up to in the XR space, doing amazing work. I'll allow them to introduce themselves, starting with Yolanda. Could you please introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Yolanda Barton, and I am the founder and CEO of Revere XR.
Amazing. Nice to have you here. Next up is Fatima.
so hello guys. So I'm Fatima, and I'm working as a XR user researcher.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And finally, Lona.
Thanks, Roman, and hello to everybody. Really excited to be having this discussion with all of you. So I'm Lona King. I'm a creative technologist, cultural ambassador, and inclusive innovation scholar. Really passionate about any unconventional works that bring art and culture and tech within the same conversation, and also deeply invested in just kind of reimagining Africa's collective futures and new ways of storytelling.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So this session basically is about African or XR women change makers. I would say XR because XR is global right now. And why I invited this amazing lady here is to share their journey with XR, what they are currently building, their experiences, and also how they can inspire the next generation of content creators who will amazingly be women championing XR. So I have a couple of questions for the panelists, and I'll start off with Yolanda. So could you please highlight your journey with XR and also how you got started as an immersive storyteller?
Absolutely. Originally, I was looking for a solution for something that was affecting my community, which was my neighborhood had been gentrified. And after returning to my neighborhood from being gone for over a decade, I couldn't find the community or any trace of the amazing history that took place there. And some of the history that took place in my neighborhood was a lot of world renowned musicians that either launched their career or were born and raised and launched their career right in my neighborhood. And we're talking musicians like Quincy Jones and Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain, Ernestine Anderson, Sir Mix-a-Lot, like so many amazing world renowned musicians. And I felt really privileged to grow up in that space. But after returning and not finding a trace of it, I realized the dilemma was that we had paved over that history. And how are we going to make that history available to future generations? How are people that came from this neighborhood going to be able to connect to their legacy? And so I wanted to find a solution to preserve that neighborhood. And when I stumbled upon virtual reality, I realized not only can you simulate any environment, we can recreate its spaces that once existed for other people to experience. And that really led to my journey. I felt like storytelling has a place in XR. And luckily, people told me that wasn't the case because when you tell me I can't do something, it literally means I'm going to go do it. So, due to some of the academic leadership and advisors that told me storytelling has no place in immersive tech, I really wanted to prove them wrong. And so today I have created a VR experience that recreated the history from my neighborhood and so that other people can experience it, so we can preserve that history into the future. And now my goal is to find all kinds of historic gems and treasures and stories that represent community spaces that should not be forgotten. So we're using futuristic technology to preserve the past for future generations.
Amazing. Just you saying that brings a thought about the project we did in with the museum here in Nigeria, like trying to digitize some of our history and cultures for our future generation to be able to experience it. So that's really impactful, I must say.
Thank you.
Great. Fatima, could you please also share your journey with us, like how you got started with digital and also emerging
Yeah.
technologies?
Okay. So for me, it's a little bit different because I don't recall. I just I woke up and I said, "Oh, today I'm inspired about innovation. I want to do my career on that." But I think it was more about a process because I came from a engineering background and I the passion about new technologies and innovation strategies was like growing up since I was being a student. And I think there is also a part of creativity in that, because I see that in those technologies, whether metaverse, whether IoT, or artificial intelligence, is creating new opportunities. So for people, for organization, for industries, and by solving those problems and growing the business, I also fall in love with how new technologies was feeding and progressing the technical part of the technology. When I say the technicals, it's like the devices, the computing behind it. So I remember that I've been working on different projects during my studies and on professional work. So every time I work on a project, I saw that there is always a new thing that we can do to improve that product or that service or experience for the people that will use it. So, and then from that, I said, okay, I want to do that. I want to be in the new technologies. And virtual reality, I started using it on automotive engineering for the people that were driving, and was more about ergonomics. And I said, okay, I want to do that. I want to be more in contact with the customer that will be using new technologies to solve their problems. So I think this is mainly how I landed on the XR.
I can so imagine. Just like me, it was just like love at first sight. When I wore the Oculus Go, I told myself I just have to get on this, and here I am, like building solutions with it, impactful solutions that can really change humanity is what I'm really passionate about. Lona, I know you're a creative at heart, and I know you love XR. Tell us your story.
Thanks, Roma. I think my story is very similar to Yolanda's. Really resonates with me. My journey with virtual worlds, and really the introduction to immersive tech, virtual and augmented reality as a medium of storytelling, really came from my quest to understand where African heritage was and what exactly it was. You know, there's been this false narrative that African history was not documented. It really was. It just was documented in a very different format. So I found myself obsessing over museum spaces and culture sites, and to really best appreciate, you know, how a lot of African cultures related to spaces and objects. You know, for a very long time, we've attached heritage and our understanding of heritage to objects and buildings and kind of tangible things. So we hear things like, you know, African history was stolen, and 90% of African artifacts do sit in Western museums and private collections. But in truth, African heritage is mostly intangible, yeah? It's buried all around us. It's in the places that we walk, the places that we sleep. It's where we exist daily. You know, it's in our music, it's in our fashion, it's in our spirituality, it's our most beautiful things. So that intangibility is something that museums and artifacts and objects and static things really struggle to articulate, you know? Museums are limited by space and time. They can only accommodate a certain number of objects at a particular period of time. And therefore, they've struggled to relay the layers attached to this story. So a drum is a drum in a museum space. Or at the Louvre, it could be a drum. But if you really return it back to the owners, it's layered. You know, it's not just a drum. It has so many, almost an infinite code embedded in it. So how do we communicate that multisensory element of African heritage? And I think for me, it was that realization that, you know, the static element defeats the purpose of what these cultures are trying to relay. So I found the closest mediums to are working those kind of multisensory parts of these objects in immersive tech. And I think that to me was my introduction, that we could be able to layer different senses or different formats and very different themes to what could stand as an object. So that's where the virtual world, I think to me, really, really comes out quite strongly. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate with that. Like seeing how we can, if possible, document some intangible heritage that we have so far, right, and preserve them for more experiences and for people that are not necessarily in Africa to engage with it, right, using VR as a tool. Yolanda, my next question for you is: I know you're passionate about diversity in the metaverse, right? Also, from your experience building with XR, what do you think can be done to build a diversified metaverse, offering equal opportunities and inclusivity for all?
Well, I have a very unique perspective on this.
Mhm.
I think that what we're seeing right now is that those numbers and this audience of VR lovers and XR lovers is not going to increase until we really make it more accessible and adoptable in communities that we haven't considered yet. We have not put this technology in everyone's hands. There are still a lot of communities that have not been exposed to immersive technology or the power of Web3. And we need their input and we need their perspective and we need their contribution to this space in the same way that people felt that storytelling wasn't an important opportunity in immersive tech. We're seeing the opposite of that now because we're seeing people win awards around their immersive storytelling experiences. So we really do have the power to move this industry with more cultural contribution from different spaces. And we cannot move further than people's ability to be introduced to the technology, because those introductions can create new and innovative processes and opportunities that we never even considered. And so I think what's really important is that we consider who are the people that continue to be overlooked, who are the people that do not have access to this technology, and how can we introduce them? There needs to be more entry points, right, in communities that don't have access to technology. And we know that there's a divide. That's not new. But how are we going to bridge that? And we can't move past the opportunity of more innovative, inclusive voices helping to shape the future of this technology. So I work really closely with schools and communities that have not had access, and we call this our opportunity to plug in. We're looking to plug in people daily to the opportunity to experience digital worlds. And I'm sure everyone on this panel has seen that moment when someone puts a headset on for the first time and you can see their world and perspective change immediately. The fact that there's so many people that haven't had this opportunity is a dilemma. We really need the opportunity to introduce more groups of people who don't have access to this technology so they can show us how it'll solve dilemmas in their community, so they can show us how their communities can utilize this technology. We tend to be on this race to create things quicker than our ability to bring people to the table to contribute to the space and share their input. I'm really focused on making sure that everyone gets a chance to have their aha moment, right? That amazing moment where you realize I can shape worlds. I can shape the future through digital worlds. For me, I can create a time machine where we can experience history. For others, it's I can contribute to how we see the future. If we're not willing to have those conversations and give more people seats at the table to share their perspective, we will never grow to the place that we're trying to get to. And for some audiences, that's, we need to make $900 billion by 2030. You will not achieve that level of success if more input, more voices, more communities, more stories aren't helping to shape the future of this world. So our ability to collaborate and our ability to innovate depends on us seeing each other as our strengths. And inclusion plays a huge role in that.
That's so true. And I like the work you're doing so far, trying to support organizations to see how important it is to have like inclusion and diversity in their projects and initiatives. So thank you so much. Fatima, I know you are into the XR space also, and you are currently a user researcher with focus on holographic presence. My question is, how can we inspire young African women just like you, right, to push beyond any barriers they currently face in getting started with emerging tech, especially XR.
Fatima, you're on mute.
Yes. Now. So I said that's a very important question related to young women, African women on the whole continent. So in my point of view, I think the most challenging barriers that I can see today is the accessibility barriers to knowledge, information, training, mentoring, devices, places. So when it comes to knowledge in education, especially in that is the I think the field that I'm interested the most is education. So when it comes to knowledge, I think there is few training programs, conferences in local places, and also there is maybe a lack of community to share their experience. So I think this is why we are here today in the XR Global Conferences and gathering the African community from all over the world to support those women and also to share the experience to show that there is something existing here, and this is will have very positive impact, because now we see that everyone has a smartphone, everyone has access to internet, okay, but what we can do for them so they can use these smartphones or internet to get this information, how can we bring closer to them accessibility to training, for example, and then they can take their life with their hands. They have a vision and work on that. And here I think we come to the next barrier. It's the accessibility to the devices. At this moment, I think there is not few, but not everyone can have a big cost regarding selling or buying XR devices.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do the first step. We organize, we can take the initiative to invite people, hand them the XR devices, and they think in education schools it's where we can start, because this is the basis. This is where people can have very quickly access to those devices. And just to finish the answer, I think we as actors, we are having the opportunity to work in these fields. We are lucky. And our goals is to share what we are doing, to take more initiative, grow the community, and push and encourage them to follow their own visions, and so they can succeed in whatever they want to do. They can do it. So yeah. So I'm really glad to meet you, and I think this is just the beginning of a greater journey.
True. So true.
Yeah.
I love your point. You talked about education, you talked about accessibility. But what I would also love to add is seeing how the women folks out there can just point out a mentor, like an amazing woman in the XR space they can look up to, right? And I would love each and every one of you here on the call to be able to be accessible to these students or to these creatives that want to reach out, right? Because sometimes all they just need is a direction for you to just point them on where to go, and they will go fully into it.
Yeah.
Donna, could you add more points to the question regarding barriers of entry?
Oh yeah, so for sure. I think the ecosystem as a whole is still really, really young, and of course without its challenges. And because it's a tech-centric industry, we cannot separate it from the realities and the struggles that women already have in the existing tech space. I think the women in tech global stats place women at 30%. Again, that's really, really, really low. And a recent report specifically focusing on Africa, based on the a report that came out, places women in XR at about 20%. Again, very, very similar to the realities on the bigger tech space. And I mean, the challenges stay the same. There are socio-economic barriers that, of course, prevent people from getting into, more women from getting into the space. The challenges that have been emphasized before, scenarios of cost of hardware, access to hardware, how expensive the software is. You know, there's the language and the jargons, the ethical debates around this, cost of internet access. I mean, these are just some basic challenges that, of course, need to be addressed. We cannot underestimate the power of putting together, building the infrastructure. The beautiful thing, and the why I particularly love this innovation or this new technology, is that, one, the rules have not been set. You know, the whole world is, and it's a kind of an equal playing field, both on the African scene, but also on the Western scene. Like, everybody is just trying to figure out how things are going to work. There's a lot of experimentation. So it's a very exciting time to plug in. Fatima covered it quite beautifully when she talked about the power of community. We cannot underestimate that. And I think that's a point that cannot be underemphasized. Again, this is a field that is heavy on skills. So talent development is something that we also have to really, really, really look into quite closely. So the power of community, just making sure that, you know, we're rallying more women into the space. The conversation about talent development comes into play here. But again, XR, the rules are not very different from the rules of getting women into tech. It is that kind of massive sensitization, massive educational campaign, and again, the power of community. Yeah, I think that, to me, is what I would add to what has already been covered.
That's so true. Community is why we're here, right? Trying to build a global community around XR, and to try as much as possible to get more people on board, especially those from the developing nations, to see the amazing potentials that this tech has to offer for various sectors: education, arts and culture, tourism. Is just immense, right? So for me, if you love XR, you're interested in it, just jump in as soon as you can. Find the right use case that you're passionate about and plug in XR into it. Moving on to Yolanda. So I know you have an amazing initiative or company called XR, and you basically help organizations to understand the importance of inclusivity in tech. My question is, what's your advice for women, especially in Africa, regarding building a career or building a business in XR?
I would first start by being really clear on what you want to do and never accepting no as an answer. I assume that the majority of the women on this panel have experienced doubters and naysayers and obstacles and challenges to our goals. I think it's really important to not ask permission to create your vision and to move fearlessly towards executing it. You don't need a ton of buy-in. You don't need people to give you permission to be you and to become the leader you seek to become in this space. So go into it with a sense of knowingness that it really doesn't matter what other people think, that you have a worthy contribution that is necessary. Your voice, your perspective, your action, your vision is all extremely imperative to pushing the future forward. So I would say be fearless in your pursuit and never accept no as an answer, because while you may hear a tremendous amount of no's, there's always going to be a yes somewhere. And that just means you have not found your yes yet. So continue to move forward. I would also say, let's consider what only women can bring to the space. Let's consider what women leadership looks like in this space. We've seen leadership of all forms in other areas, but there's something really unique about women leadership in Web3 and in immersive technology. And I think this is something that this technology can be used to nurture communities, to uplift and encourage people. And so I just encourage you to build a community around you of people who support you, find your tribe, and focus on people who are supporting you and ignore the rest.
Well said, I must say. Because I remember when I started off, it wasn't easy, right? But finding people to give me feedback, positive feedback has been amazing and also supportive. And also trusting the process. You won't hit it big at an instance, right? It's a step by step movement, right? You just need to focus on your goals, your objectives, why you got into XR, what you're building, and the impact you really want to make with the technology. And you can just be where Yolanda is currently.
Well, I'd also say, like, I still hear no today a lot too. Like, don't think that anywhere on your journey that's going to stop, right? Some people are not going to see the power of XR in the way that you see it. However, focus on your impact. Why are you doing this? Who does it benefit? Who are you trying to impact? And as long as that remains clear in your vision, you will be able to reach your goals.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think that was for me personally.
Everybody.
Okay, thank you. Fatima, so I know, I remember our first call, you were showing me some holographic presence kind of experiences, and it was super amazing. And your company, Matsuko, is doing something around that, building holographic presence, right? My question is, what sectors do you think will benefit the most from adopting this technology in Africa, hopefully in future?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, the most challenging thing that we will need to overcome is the accessibility for knowledge and information. And in my point of view, and from the country I came from, Morocco, I see that education we need to work on education. We need to bring knowledge more easily to people, and we know huge cost. Everyone needs education. Everyone needs access to information. So what we can do, what we can do is this. So as I'm working on XR user research, I'm more in close with the people that they will use this technology to understand their needs, their pain point, and to answer their essential needs. So and to be able to bring the knowledge to them, I think holographic presence has a potential use to make people closer. For example, I can bring an expert in XR for the people that are in the African continent, just using a smartphone. So, and with that, what we can find is, for example, with augmented reality, seeing a hologram make the people more engaged. So there is an engagement to learning, and also to have that information that it's far away from here. For example, Yolanda, you are in the USA. You can be on a hologram in Paris, in Africa, in wherever, and you will be inspiring because you will share your knowledge, and people will like it. And yes, I see in education there is a very important thing that we can do using holograms. And I'm very lucky because I'm working on that, and I want also, like, for example, to have to give courses inside the metaverse, for example, but it's the real me in 3D that is giving lectures or insights or something. We can organize conferences, presentation, and yes. And also what we can see in the modern days is that it's a new generation of students, and they are more in a fast way. They are more engaged in new technologies. So the traditional way will not work, and it's not in any way working. So we need to have more dynamic in the classrooms, and to make all the people work each other with each other, so they can have also their visions. And yes, to make their own future.
True. Very important. I totally agree with you. Education will basically benefit the most from holographic technology because my mom is a teacher, right? And she her adopting emerging tech is quite slow because she's from a generation that is more of textbooks and the whiteboard or blackboard. But if the upcoming generation can do this, especially in XR, it will really be impactful because now they'll be able to visualize what they're being taught in the classroom, not just using textbooks. Right? They can see it in 3D, engage with it, and tell better stories. I feel with XR, we'll be able to have students that will be more expressive, be able to tell their thoughts or share their thoughts with the teacher or with their fellow mates, and would have amazing scientists and engineers that can really build impactful solutions for Africa, especially in the areas that we are currently facing some challenges at the moment. I don't call them challenges; I call them opportunities. Right. Moving on
And
to
because also that our brain is wired with 3D.
true.
Yes, so with 3D we can really learn really fast. And there've been some neuroscientific experience about AR brain activity between no AR and AR tasks, and they found that with AR the brain activity is much higher than no AR. So this is for sure something really good. Yeah.
That's so true. Thank you so much for that. So Lona, recently, as you're aware, the Africa XR report was released, which was a partnership with some key players in the ecosystem, working together to gather data on the growth of XR in Africa. I know you were part of that project. My question for you is, since you have gotten the insight and the data from companies and creators, what do you think can be done to support these organizations to be able to create content that can really inspire basically, or basically inspire and showcase Africa in a better light?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I always say any research is as good as the data that actually drives in. And why this particular report, and this is the Africa Extended Reality report, kind of the first of its kind to be created for the continent, was a community content, a community collective initiative. And by that, it's literally the keepers and the owners and the contributors and the creators on the continent all coming together and saying, hey, we can't find the data about the continent. There is barely any research. What can we do to put our thoughts together? How do we map out the whole ecosystem on the continent? And that's basically how the report came to life. So for me, it's it's deeply humbling to be part of such a generous community of creators, people who are pioneering in the space, people who are creating regardless of the infrastructure challenges, regardless of the limitations they are building, regardless, and fantastic work has been created. I think one of the things that came out quite strongly in this report was the overload of opportunities. The opportunities are really, really endless. I think that Metaverse, there's a report that highlights that the Metaverse could contribute about $40 billion to different sectors within the African economy. Okay, and I found that so fantastic. But one of the things, again, that we could not run away from in this report was the Afro-optimism. And I've said this a million times, but there is a renaissance happening on this continent, and it's heavily driven by, it's young people, our cultural diversity, our dynamism, and strongly backed by tech. And it's people saying, Africa's time is alive, and it's now, and we want to take center stage in telling our own stories and kind of reshaping our own narrative. So what I really see is immersive tech and extended reality becoming a soft power and cultural diplomacy tool, and to allow African creators to really export, advertise, and trade our culture and creative goods to ourselves as the continent, but also really to the rest of the world. I think MTN last week or 2 weeks ago or a month ago launched, this is MTN Group, launched Africa's very first music concert in the Metaverse. So it's a very exciting time, I think, for creators on the continent. And beautifully, I mean, for me, it's knowing that the future web, and basically Web 3.0, is the web of the content creators. There's some low-hanging fruits which I think Fatima, you yourself, Arome, pointed towards: tourism, entertainment, arts, and advertising. Those spaces are definitely going to be heavy contributors in really taking how we play with these technologies forward. There's real estate, education comes in quite strongly. Tourism is another sector that comes in quite strongly. So that is the opportunity for content creation. However, there's also huge opportunities for infrastructure development. Yeah, we've talked about accessibility challenges, whether it's the hardware challenges, whether it's internet access challenges. I think we now beginning to see African hardware companies. Eden Labs in South Africa have built the very first headset on the continent, and we hope to see more hardware begin to come out of these spaces. So in terms of infrastructure, there's opportunities there. In terms of electricity access, I think this is governments to begin to see how to put together enabling environments for creators to actually thrive, considering sub-Saharan Africa, I think, still has the highest and most expensive bandwidth prices, but also electricity tariffs. So there's opportunities there on for kind of people who are going in to see what can be invested in the space, right? An enabling environment. Policy opportunities do come in there. There's discussions around tax, digital tax, and really understanding the digital economy. So definitely we need a lot more researchers in the space. So I think one of the things that stood out in the report, while there are challenges and there's need for more funding and need for more training, is that there's just an infinite loop of opportunities for people who want to plug and play. As I think Fatima mentioned, the conversation around education, there is just so much. So many gaps from the consumption end, but also for the creator end, in putting together, XR learning opportunities and resources. And I think finally, for me, I would say just one more thing in terms of opportunities that could emerge is that building those communities. How do we, rally the resources together? How do we learn collectively, and really shape how we want to use this tool? And why I'm particularly fascinated with this, with XR at this particular time, is that if you've really studied the history of innovation on this continent, the way Africa chooses to play with any technology, whether it's mobile, is quite peculiar. What would work here almost doesn't work in the West, and we saw that with mobile money. And I think we're going to see something like that. So mobile money basically disrupted the financial institutions and traditional banking across most of sub-Saharan Africa. I see extended reality doing a lot of that. So I think it's a very exciting time to be alive. The opportunities are absolutely endless and enormous, for all people at all levels, whether it's entry level, whether you're an experimenter, you're a hobbyist, or if you really want to plug in for business. The opportunities are immense.
True, that's true. Regarding the MTN project, it's amazing to see multinationals or large corporations plugging into XR, and I feel that would encourage more organizations and companies to invest in it, because these startups need funding to build, or funding, or more like income to build projects, right? Hardware is expensive, subscriptions for most of this tech, right? So it would be good for most of these companies to plug in as soon as possible. The organizations are there ready to support them. For me, I feel the African XR report is an amazing document, which basically curates key data on the growth of the industry. But just like an addition to it, it would be good to have like if it's possible for the project to be able to capture like the entire landscape, right, irrespective of the nature or the current status of the organization or startup, right? It would be good for them to, because they be able to tell the actual story of what's happening on the continent in terms of more like the street level of XR, if I must say. So we're almost rounding up, but I want to throw around a couple of questions for Yolanda. If I can remember vividly, you worked on a project that was part of the Oculus Launchpad initiative. Could you share that with the audience?
Certainly. I had the opportunity to be a part of Oculus Launchpad this year. And while I think there's going to be more information about the winners in the future, it was really great to join a community of developers and creators who really wanted to push the boundaries, right? Everyone was there because they see a future in some way, shape, or form with this technology, and they wanted to contribute it to that space. So it was great to bring my ideas and perspective and build my prototype. If some of you are new creators and you're looking to really find a way to bring your vision to life or create a prototype, Oculus Launchpad was a great place for me to do that. I was able to be a part of a cohort and work with developers and other creators to help expand my vision and, in essence, create the prototype for my product. So I was really excited, and I took what I learned there, which was a great deal about technology and development. And I'm a non-tech founder, so I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder, I'm not a technical artist, but I have a vision. And I needed a place to bring that vision, to grow it and to bring it to life. And for me, Oculus Launchpad was essentially my launchpad for what I could do in this space. And it was a really great experience. And I am still very active in the community with other launch padders. And we're all looking for ways to continue to work our vision into the ecosystem of other creators and build in the creative economy. And what it did for me was showed me that I really do belong in the space, and it's okay that I'm not a technical founder, and it's okay that I'm not a developer, that my vision is worthy and of value, and I found other people to help me bring that vision to life.
Sure. You just need is a vision, I must say. And anything can be done in XR. We already have no-code platforms that can enable you to build XR experiences on your mobile device or on the web with ease, right? So it's just about your dream and vision, and then you can build anything possible. So Fatima, my question for you is, if a younger version of yourself was watching this session, right, what would be that word that would inspire the person to just trust their dreams and just go into Exile? What would you advise a younger version of Fatima watching this video?
Wow. Whoa. This is a tough question, but yeah, if I'm a young Fatima who is like watching myself like now, once I would be proud, and I think I would be more confident about, if you have a vision, don't stop, just write it, and step by step work on it, because one day you will succeed on that, on what you want to do. Failure or failing during the process, it's a process. We should embrace it. Yeah, so I encourage people to not really stop from dreaming and from learning, meeting awesome people, and to welcome every critique or every advice or every challenge or risk. Just go forward, and everything's gonna be good, because you choose that way, and should not be afraid about it. So yes, so I want also to congratulate Yolanda for the Launchpad.
Yeah.
It's really good. So I have a question. When did you started the project with Launchpad? I mean,
Well, I began my concept in 2016 and I worked that through two different master's programs and part of a doctorate. So it was really all academic in the theory of. And then I got tired of talking about the theory of it and wanted to create the application, right? And I think there's more opportunities to talk about the theory of the impact. So I will go back to research at some point once my product goes out to market, because you want to know how it's impacting people's lives and the power of it. But I spoke at Oculus about how I envision the future of VR in 2018. And then I was invited to Oculus Launchpad. They do have applications, so focus on their website, check it out every once in a while. COVID definitely put like a halt to some of it. But once, I think 2021 is when I joined, and their applications on their website, I think they put it up once a year. So I'm not sure when the next round is going to be happening, but it really is a great program and a really great community. And like you said, it's okay if you just have an idea, right? And you're looking for a space to be with other like-minded people who are eager to execute their vision. So you don't have to have your own idea. You can also just join another team, right? So some people may not have, some people came to Launchpad looking for an idea that someone already had, but you can build your team. I've seen people in the past build their company through this experience. And that's essentially what I did also. So I'd love to talk more with you if you're interested in it. And I think it's a really great idea to keep an eye on the Oculus website. They have a lot of tools for developers, and there's Oculus for Good as well. I don't work for Oculus, but I had a really great experience in Launchpad, and see that there is a lot of powerful, amazing ideas that come to that space. And they need help making this more inclusive. They need help bringing that representation to the table. And while I think their intentions are really good, it's going to take more people like us for contributing and encouraging people to step into those spaces, because I think a lot of imposter syndrome and stuff prevents us from stepping into those opportunities. Yes, it's possible you may be the only one in the room. That is as Loma stated, the statistics are real. You really may be the only one in the room, but your voice and your contribution and your ideas and your vision are necessary for the future. So for me, I did it for my daughters because they wanted to be a part of this. They helped me develop my experience. Their perspective was weaved into the thread of everything that I did. And it can be daunting to be the only one at times, but if we don't step up, then no one else will get the chance to come behind us.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Yolanda.
Yeah.
Lona, the younger version of yourself also. What would that word or that sentence that would inspire that person to just get started?
Interestingly, I think for me, I think the younger version of myself that struggled to not really to fit in, but to fit into the existing patterns. And I really say this from the perspective that I've always been very escapist. I've always been somebody who gravitated towards the most beautiful things, and somebody who gravitated towards you kind of the other. So, and this really is difficult in Africa and in the startup space or in the tech space or as an engineer, is there's a lot of conversation around problem solving. You look for a problem, try to solve it. But for me, I've always gravitated towards things that allowed for imagination and pushing the boundaries of creative freedom. Yeah, and maybe those roles did not exist then because the roles that existed were problem-solving roles. And I think the advice I would give my younger self is like, you were not wrong. Continue to imagine for the future and continue to exist in 20, 30 years ahead of yourself. Because I think we need more futurists. We need more people who are going to imagine ahead of us. And yeah, 75% can focus on, solving the most pressing current issues in our case, whether it's, hunger or whatever that is. But we also need people who are going to really push the boundaries of what humanity is. And I think we are innately creative. and really exploit that. So I think for me, it's just reaffirming that you were not foolish to gravitate towards the other or the imagination or to the kaleidoscopic things, that your role only showed up ahead of its time. And I think that's also the advice that we can give young people today, that the skill sets for today may not be relevant in the next 20, 30 years. We talk about the skill sets for the future. I think right now some of the conversations around development for developers is the traditional Web 2.0 developers have to kind of reconfigure and reconstruct themselves to fit into the realm of Web3, or the rules are very different. Yeah. So I think for me, it's what a time to be alive. Choose to stay the course. I guess so. I'm really excited that somehow there's some kind of convergence happening now, that the artists and the engineers are now sitting in the same room. These are roles that were separated for a very long time, and yeah. So for me, it's a reassurance that you aren't crazy. Just stay the course.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, almost 50 minutes gone. Interesting conversations. So if you are in the audience watching us right now, if you have any questions for our amazing panelists, please drop them on the comment or just drop a comment and we'll display it on the screen. Yeah. Okay, good. That's fine. So the next session up in it, we'll be talking about XR for education and social impact. It's an interesting one, actually. I have a friend who is doing something with XR for adult seniors, right? So those in the retirement homes, being able to have fun again, be alive again using XR, and also some amazing guys doing some stuff around building like training scenarios for creatives down to learn about XR. And so onboarding them, supporting them with hardware, and also access to mentors. So it will be a very interesting session for you guys to join also and watch, and for also the audience to be a part of. I'm super excited about XR, right? Any day, anytime, I'm game, right? And I'm super glad to have you guys championing it, especially for women, right? Because I know we need you guys to be in check every time, right? So it's good to do this with you all, and I can't wait. I'm super excited about the future of the metaverse, especially in Africa.
Thank you so much.
I have a yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you
sure.
so much. I have a
Fatimas,
question for you. Yeah. So it's the same question that you have asked us, but it's for you to answer the question.
okay, the younger version of myself is just like you guys shared, is to trust the process, dream big, even though sometimes it can be daunting being in an environment that limits you to think small, right? But think big, and always have faith, right? Faith is very important. If you have faith, every other thing it cannot measure it. But having faith in what you want to do and surrounding yourself with some amazing people like you guys, right? Good, right? So have faith, trust the process, and just believe your future is going to be better eventually. Great. So thank you so much, guys. I'm glad to do this with you all, and I hope we can do this a lot more in the future. For everyone that joined us anywhere in the world, thank you for being a part of this session. The next session is coming up in a couple of minutes, and I can't wait to see all of you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Romana. Thanks, Yolanda and Fatima.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Have a good one.
Yeah.